everyone. I'm Heta Pandit, chairperson of the Goa Heritage Action Group. I'm sitting in the third part of the day called Timsan in Goa, in the beautiful village of Velsang, with my colleague and friend Max D'Souza from the village. Max represents the Village Action Committee against double tracking. We are meeting here today and talking to you today to explain to you the situation we are in, the circumstances in which we've had to reach out with this awareness campaign of the impact on heritage houses and our rural life in South Goa. So, to start with, let me welcome Max to this meeting and ask him to tell us about his main concerns. Max, over to you.
As mentioned by Heta, I am a member of the Villagers Action Committee, and what we would like to focus in this presentation is that the double tracking will not only affect the wildlife sanctuary and the national park, but will affect villages right through from Mole to Vasco. As a sample, we have taken a small part of this village, which consists of 4 villages, which is Arosi, Kansauling, Velsang and Pyle, to give you an impression of the impact that this double tracking will inflict. You will now see the layout of these 4 villages, where the total stretch of these 4 villages is just 3 kilometers. And you will observe that there are very many houses. There are over 150 structures on both sides of the existing track. Many of them were built prior to 1850. They are heritage buildings of historic and aesthetic importance. Agriculture, traditional fishing, and tourism are the means of subsistence of our villagers. A significant part of the existing tract is within 500 meters of the high tide line and is notified, and a part of it is passing through no development slopes as notified in the regional plan. The plan that you see is a plan that was promulgated in 1968. Since then, there have been very many more houses, compound walls that have been erected and constructed during the past 52 years. Now we'll get to the utilization of the present single track. Today, we have 17% of the track used by or utilized by passenger trains, 25% by express trains, and 58% goods trains. This is the total traffic on the existing single track. 4 passenger trains were suspended during the pandemic. But from 7th December 2020, only 2 pairs of these trains have been started, with a rider that continuation would depend on passenger turnout and people's response. This has been put out by the South Central Railway, who run these trains, in the press. The temporary period is being extended regularly, and as on date, it is extended up to 31st January. South Western Railway are yet to take a final call on the continuation of these trains and even the frequency. We have apprehensions that these trains would be discontinued completely. Express trains do not stop at any of the intermediate stations between Vasco and Margao. These express trains run almost empty as they approach the terminal station at Vasco. So effectively, the goods trains are the main trains, or the goods rakes are the main trains that utilize the single track today. The rakes consist of 59 coaches, excessively overloaded to the extent that they require 2 diesel engines to move these coal rakes along a flat terrain through which they go in our village. Enough has been said about the pollution caused by the coal droppings and coal dust that spills through the flimsy tarpaulin covers. Here is a slide which shows you how the railway authorities employ staff, personnel, to pick up the fallen coal. They then bag it, you can see the bags around, and then move it away. They also make attempts to conceal the fallen coal by spraying fresh metal on when I say metal, I mean khadi, the stones. But despite all their attempts to conceal the hidden coal that has spilt, they cannot conceal everything. And here are two snapshots of coal that can be seen despite their attempts to conceal the droppings. Now, in addition to the droppings, we also have smoke and sulfur dioxide that is spewed by the excessively primed diesel engines, the noise pollution caused by the roar of diesel engines, roll of overloaded wagons, and persistent loud blaring horns through the dead of night. All this affects the senior citizens living along this track. We would also like to bring to the notice of the public at large that these trains move at around 110 kilometers an hour through these densely populated areas, and there are no barricades along the railway track. There have been deaths, but no one seems to be concerned or bothered. You can imagine the impact, the vibrations of the trains moving at 110 kilometers an hour on the old heritage homes that were built with stone and lime mortar. No cement was used at that time. These cracks are observed on most of the houses that line the track. Whilst there has been no attempt to mitigate the destructive impact of the existing single track on the lives and subsistence of villagers, attempts are now being made to push through doubling of the track with no in-depth field study and social impact or technical feasibility or financial viability study. The double track is now being planned on a right-of-way that has been left by ancestors on both sides of the railway track. South Western Railway have no right to this right-of-way, which continues to be used as a motorable access to houses along the existing track. The slides here will show you how this right-of-way is presently being used. You see the cars around that are using this right-of-way. Once a double track comes, this presently used right-of-way will be utilized by the double track. The other important point is that the double track plans have been drawn on survey plans that have been promulgated in 1968. These plans do not capture the houses that have been built since then during the past 52 years, and neither do they capture the contours of the land. Both these aspects underestimate the impact of the new track. Landfills, retaining walls that will be required for the second track will disturb the area around existing houses, rendering them landlocked. Here are some slides which show you what will happen to the houses once there is a landfill to increase the height of the second track to the level of the existing track. We now observe that South Western Railway is restricting movement of our villagers on the right of way by placing obstacles in their way. Here are some slides which show you the obstacles that have been placed by South Central Railway. They do it very coolly, calmly, when no one is around. They just place the sleepers in the path of the right of way. Now, this track, the existing track and the double track, will be passing through areas within 50 meters of a local hospital, a 42-bedded hospital. And the blowing of the horns at dead of the night is going to disturb the peace and tranquility even of the patients in the hospital. The other important aspect is that landfills and hill cutting, erection of retaining walls would be necessary for the second track are incompatible with the coastal development regulations and the zoning as marked in the regional plan. So all these will have to be violated. Clearly, South Western Railway is attempting to bulldoze through the double track without taking into confidence the villagers whose lives and subsistence is being disrupted in the absence of a detailed field study. As genuine concerns of the villagers have fallen on deaf ears, we would bring it out to the people at large to raise their voices and express their concerns to the government on the concerns that we have.
Thank you, Max, for giving us a clarification on the ground reality. I will take over from here by repeating a few things and recalling a few things that Max has already told us. One is that the study area we've chosen are the 4 villages of Valsaun, Pale, Kasoli and ROC. These 4 villages are strung together around the Vasco end of the Hospet Railway double tracking project. Let me go through a brief history of the single track. The early beginning, it was used as a village pathway. Believe it or not, this was a pathway that in 1881 landowners permitted the laying of a meter gauge. It was given to the West of India Portuguese Guaranteed Railway. It was a private company in London. No land was acquired, no compensation received. Right of way was given and accommodated trenches. It served as vibration barriers and monsoon water drains. In 1887, the meter gauge track was commissioned. In 1990, it was converted to a broad gauge. This is the brief history of how a pathway has become a railway line. Railways now claim ownership to the right of way, as Max has just told us. Survey plan was done in 1968, as Max has just told us. This does not in any way reflect the ground reality. Over the last 52 years, no new surveys have been conducted, no inventories done. Now the rise of the double tracking proposal. Today we have 150 structures on either side of the railway track that we know of. But this survey was done a long time ago. We don't know whether some structures have disappeared and new ones have been added on. So a second track in this area would render a large number of existing houses landlocked, simply because no study or no inventory has been carried out. What about the legal compliance? The CRZ, the Notified Regional Plan, land ownership, technical clearance from the Town and Country Planning Department, retaining walls, construction licenses from the local panchayat authorities. Can anybody show us any of these? The present status of the government consultation. Recent concerns. Chief Minister of Goa convened a meeting with railway authorities. He requested the Minister for Environment for a joint site inspection. This was done on 20th October 2020. Coal dust pollution, tarpaulin covered wagons is not a solution. Plenty of coal droppings all along the track, as we've just heard. Noise pollution, diesel engines, persistent honking by 59 wagons right through the day and night. No in-depth field study has been carried out initiating land acquisition proceedings under the Railway Act of 1989. The Environment Minister requested the railway authorities to take note and address the concern, but till today this has still not happened. What is the impact of the current single-line railway track? There are cracks on people's floors and on walls, and structural cracks between the windows and doors and the roofing. Now, it cannot be a coincidence. You might say a few cracks appear in old houses that may be 150 years old, but all the houses in these villages having cracks on floors and walls cannot be a coincidence. If at all it is a coincidence, it has to be scientifically studied by the Goa College of Engineering, for example, a recognized government body. Why has such a study never been done? What is the proximity of the present tracks to heritage houses? If you go to a house called Vivenda Morgados, that family has to deal with soot on the railings, soot on their walls, soot on their floors, because coal-laden railway wagons are passing by 8 meters away from their homes. Now please ask me, what is the value of a heritage house? Can a heritage house be evaluated in monetary terms? So many square feet or so many square meters and so much per square meter? No. These houses are green houses. They're environmentally positive houses. These houses are built with organic local materials. They are built to the contour and the lie of the land. They are climatically adapted to the local climate. They are fine examples of Goan craftsmanship. They are fine examples and evidence of travel history, education history, social and cultural history of the people who live here. With a single line, the orientation of the houses has also changed. The houses that were facing the pathway, the erstwhile pathway, are now turned around and are facing the road. And some houses are completely landlocked. Can you imagine if an ambulance or a fire engine has to go through and approach one of these houses in an emergency? How will they do it? It has changed the lifestyle, the social and communication pattern of the villages over here. Heritage houses are actually built ecosystems. Cool air comes in from the garden, rises up into the house from the front steps. Warm air escapes through the tiled roof and keeping these houses cool throughout the day. Heritage houses are also economically efficient. During construction, there was minimum excavation when these houses were built. Whatever mud was excavated was piled up on the actual built-up site and front steps were added. Sit-outs and wrap-around verandas added beauty and functionality to these houses. They acted as breeze traps to keep the house cool. Broken china and tiles were often used for flooring. Designs reflected the personal histories and travel histories of families. Sit-outs also serve as social interaction spaces. Heritage houses cannot be evaluated in terms of money, in monetary terms. They are capsules of family history, travel history, evidence of our culture and social histories. They are examples of Goan travels, the travelers who brought back ideas, artifacts from elsewhere in India and from all over the world. They are examples of Goan craftsmanship, artistic design, and architectural inputs. They are examples of intellectual property, a property we may lose if we lose these houses. Art and artistic culture that reflects a love for nature. People also brought plant material from all over the world. So the gardens that these houses have, they reflect a collection of plant material from all over the world. These houses, in summary, are capsules of sacred art, religious beliefs, cultural values, lifestyles that are uniquely Goan, and lifestyles that are uniquely rural in nature. We are talking about villages in Goa. We are talking about a way of life. Double tracking will impact the way of life. It will destroy the cultural, social fabric of the community here, which is today close-knit and very valuable to the whole world. This legacy that we are talking about does not belong only to the house owners, only to the villages from Velsaon, Pale, ROC and Kasoli. They are a legacy that belongs to the whole world. It's a common legacy, our common heritage. This whole business of double track coming here into these villages, what is it an indicative of? According to me, it is an indication of non-application of mind. No surveys have been conducted to list heritage properties and sites. No scientific or social evaluation has been done of heritage value of the properties and sites. No evaluation has been done of natural water bodies, tree species or botanical specimens that are in these gardens. No social data of the living community residing along the existing track. No democratic interaction with the community or the village. No meetings have been held. Their views and concerns have never been taken into account. Their concerns, their values, their views should have been taken into account. Why is there a protest? Should they not be asking us why we are protesting? Well, thank you for watching and thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. And our only appeal to you is whatever you're doing, whether you're artists, filmmakers, writers, actors, directors, engineers, architects, any profession, please support us. Please spread the word about this calamity that is waiting to happen. In the meantime, do visit us in these villages of South Goa and see for yourself
the beauty, the greenery, and the landscape that we have. Because if things go on the way they are, even it will not last for long. Thank you.
Thank you.